I went on a first date. It like didn't go well, and I was walking home and I saw like an outdoor open mic happening. So I was like, oh, like I have this 5-minute set I've built. I can go do that. Audio Jungle.
Okay, welcome back, experts. We have a very exciting guest on today's pod, Lakshmi Kopparam. We're so hype. We literally have been trying to do this for months.
Yes.
And you are now our local friend celebrity comedian. Well, we actually met Lakshmi at UVA, good old University of Virginia.
Me and Lakshmi went through CS engineering, and it was literally...
The trauma could be seen on our faces daily, really.
Yeah. The gray hairs I've gotten from that experience, it's like countless. Oh my God. Yeah. But anyway, I would see Lakshmi in the good old CS building all the time.
Classic.
Both of us very late, very rusty looking.
Trauma bonding.
Actually. Yeah. But then she moved to New York City, and now we get to see so much more of her, and we get to see her comedy shows.
Doing her thing, 21.
Doing her thing.
We thought it'd be fun to recap to you. We just went to a comedy show this past weekend.
Fun.
Yes.
And so we went for Prachi's birthday. Happy birthday, Prachi. Happy 26th. We went to Gotham Comedy Club.
Okay.
And to be honest, hot take, I feel like I had way more fun at Comedy Mob when we saw Lakshmi than I did at this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, I think when we went to see you, it was like 20 people there performing.
Yeah, because they tried to like pack in as many comics as possible.
And so I loved the variety. I felt like everyone had a different style, and it was so engaging like that. Also, it was kind of fun, like to do the voting and the ranking.
The voting was so fun. Yeah.
I love how we had a note sheet. I was like, we were like, I'm on a show and I'm the judge.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It was really fun, but we went to this show and I just felt like, well, first of all, it was really big. Like, this was probably the biggest one I've ever been to.
Yeah, it felt bigger than Comedy Cellar, just like, and they packed like to the brim.
Like sardines vibe.
It was Friday or Saturday night?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Late night
Saturday,
show.
10:30. So I feel like that's like the prime kind of show.
Yeah,
I've been to like a few in the city, and this one was like, I think 4 comics, including the host.
Total.
It's very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
Usually, like, there's 5 at least.
I was kind of shocked when it was over, because I was like, oh.
I feel like someone must have dropped out or something.
Maybe.
I kind of thought that because the last person was Jared Freed, and he basically went on for much longer than the other one.
He was probably just the headliner. So it could be that he's the headliner, and if someone dropped out, they would have just been like, hey, Jared, like, take more time.
Yeah. I like feel like all of them were really good, and then it kind of got to the point where it was like dragging, like each set was dragging a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when it ended, I was like, oh, like I was just I was expecting another one.
Yeah. That's so interesting because Gotham's like a big club.
If
he dropped out, they could easily like find another comic who'd be like willing to jump on so quickly. So that's surprising. It just seems like they had too few on the lineup.
Maybe it was like super last minute or something.
An hour before or something. I don't know.
Even then, people will be lapping up being like, I'll be there.
I mean, I feel
I'll take a plane, I'll fly.
Opportunity. Yeah. And I mean, it was a fun show for sure.
It was fun. Yeah, they're always a good time. They're never not a good time, but I was like, wow, I kind of like the more up and coming scene. I feel like more because
they gotta try harder, you know.
They have to try harder, and it's more intimate. Like you can actually see them. Like we were in the back of the show, and literally I was like, there were a million tall people in front of me. I was like, all I see is random white men heads. Like that's all I see here.
I think that's what like the Cellar does well too, because their main room is actually so small.
Very
it feels so intimate.
Yeah, once you get in there, you're gonna get a decent view,
regardless of where you're sitting. I was sitting in the corner when I went in October with my family, and I was like, wow, it's small, but there's like stairs and stuff in there, so like everyone can see everyone. I love that.
all that is to say, you slayed at Comedy Mob Festival. And we like objectively, we were like, that was just more fun to watch, I think, for us. So.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It was so dope.
The vibe that night was also fun too. Like, it's all about how much the crowd gets into it and how good the host is too. I was very surprised by how much that impacts it, because the host has to like reset the vibe between people. So if someone doesn't do well, they have to go like bring the mood back up. Before the next person goes on. So I think having a good host is really key, and then just like the audience being into it too, because if they're into it, then the comics get the energy they need to like keep going and enjoy what they're doing. Because for me, actually, Comedy Mob, I advanced to the semifinals. Semifinal round, the ordering is random. They like pull names out of a hat. I went second to last, and because there's a 2-drink minimum, the crowd was super rowdy by the time I went up and just like talking over me, like really chatty, and very much the opposite of my experience with the first round.
Yeah.
And I'm only a year in, so I didn't really have the chops yet to like bring them under my control. Like, I tried multiple times to be like, hey, like, shut up, because I'm still talking.
Yeah.
There's still punchline.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, but it's just sometimes the luck of the draw of, like, you get a crowd that's on your vibe or they're not, and you just have to work with it. So it just is so dependent on the night and the room and, like, the people and everything.
God. There is so much. It's such a fluid thing because it's so interactive that, like, every night is truly going to be different, even if you have the same like set or whatever. Yeah, but that's so interesting.
What a sneak peek into our topic for today. So we're going to talk about all things comedy, how Lakshmi started, what kind of got her to wanting to try it. And yeah, we have a million questions, so let's do it.
Well, let's roll. Okay, so first, what year did you move to New York?
I moved in March 2021, so it was still like the edge of the pandemic ending with like the vaccine rolling out and everything. So it was like the city was still just waking up. So my first like month or two here, I remember all I did was like go on walks and sit and read in the park because like nothing else was open. But those rent deals were like chef's kiss.
Yes.
So I'm glad. Pandemic deals, we missed them.
Can't wait now.
Yeah. Like literally $1,000 less. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
Oh my gosh. But what initially got you excited to move to the city? Was it job? Were you always thinking about it? Was it pandemic?
I was definitely always thinking about it. I initially wanted to move like right after college, like straight out of UVA, but I'm an only child and my parents were very insistent on me staying in the DMV area. So, I mean, their persuading worked. I stayed, and I still like didn't live at home. I moved out to Arlington. But then COVID happened. Right before COVID, I like had moved into my dream apartment in Arlington, but like none of that worked out because it was like pandemic year.
Oh yeah.
And then that lease ended, and I was like, wait, this is my chance. I can finally move to New York. It's been long enough. I made like an internal team switch at work to move to a New York team, and it was just something I always wanted to do, so I finally did it. I just like told myself I can't live and die in Virginia. I just have to leave. I can come back, but I have to leave.
Yeah, at least try something out.
Right,
and if it's something that's been on your mind, honestly, all the East Coast babies, I feel like 80% of people are like, I need to do this because it's the big city that you grew up near.
It's just so accessible. It's very different enough, but you can still get home whenever you want to. So it just was the most appealing option.
Did comedy, at that point in time when you were moving, was that something on your mind?
Not at all. Like, literally not at all. Yeah, no. I just moved here to move here. I got here, and as anyone does, I had like 2 friends for a long time. And summer hit, and I was like, well, the one friend of the 2 is gone for a month, so what do I do? And I'm always someone who's like picked up different hobbies. Like, even in college, I was always joining a different club or trying a different activity. In Arlington, that's when I like just was a normal 20-something-year-old and wasn't doing a ton. I did join DC Bhangra crew there because I was like, I need something to do. But I never like danced competitively. And then I moved here and I was like, okay, well, I have one friend. I need to do something with my time. And stand-up was just something that I thought would always be fun to try. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, oh, I can funny sometimes, let's see where we can take that. So then I just Googled like stand-up comedy classes in New York and signed up for the first one that popped up and did that for like a month in the summer. And that's kind of what got me started. And I really enjoyed that experience and just the showcase at the end. I took classes through the Comedy Cellar, but like most major New York comedy clubs offer classes. That was just Google search, they won out. So I did that one, and we got to do a little showcase at the end of the like 6 weeks, where you just invite friends and family and whoever you want. It's like not open to the public. And it was just really fun. Like I went up there, I did the set, like I did well, I didn't like fumble or anything, and just getting that like audience laughter and feedback after each thing you said was so like satisfying that I was like, damn, I want to keep doing this, you know? It was a lot of fun.
Would you consider yourself like extroverted going into this, or like was it ever scary for you to think about like, oh, this is like basically public speaking all the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I pegged myself as an extrovert, and I've always been comfortable with public speaking. Like at work, giving presentations and stuff was never what would make me nervous. It was more like coding, you know?
Yeah.
Because like, I can talk to anyone all day. But like, don't tell me to write code. But yeah, no, public speaking was something I was okay with. And I always thought I was an extrovert, but what's been so interesting, even in like the last 2 months of like reflection of having way more comedy friends, I've realized that I'm very much on the cusp of introvert, extrovert, because there's all these comedians that I hang out with, and they're just like chatty, like always have a limitless social battery. And like, okay, I'm not that much, so maybe I'm more introvert than I thought I was. But that part of it wasn't something I feared going in.
That's awesome. Did you enjoy consuming comedy when you were like growing up? Did you have your own set of favorite comedians and stuff?
Yeah, I feel like my parents are super open-minded and chill, so whenever my dad would watch specials on TV, he would let me watch with him. And like most brown kids, I feel like Russell Peters was my first exposure to stand-up. And his material is interesting. I think he broke a lot of ground for brown comedians here, just in that sphere. Even before people like Hassan or other bigger names, I think it was Russell Peters first. So that was my exposure, and I just like enjoyed watching it. And I think after this rise of streaming specials, I definitely had ones that I would pick out and watch, but I was never like an enthusiast of someone being dedicated to like a sports team. I wasn't someone who like tracked down every comic. Even now, like I sometimes don't know some of the big names just because I haven't consumed all the content that's out there, and I still have a day job, so I don't have time to like just sit and watch. But yeah, definitely drew inspiration from that. I think I found it really cool the way comedians were able to just like build something up and like tear it down with laughter or just that release, and I was definitely very fascinated by it.
I have that in common. Me watching specials with my dad, or my dad was obsessed with Jay Leno, and that was like
my
the
dad
classic.
Too.
It's an Indian dad thing, I think. He was like very catered to the immigrant dad.
He was. And who was David Letterman too. My dad watched a ton of that.
Classic, not PC comic is what is gonna get your dad laughing. But I think there's so many little things while you're growing up, and especially you're an only child. I feel like you gravitate to like little things, and I know that's how I felt growing up. But that's awesome that you just kind of bit the bullet and decided to do it, because I think that's really hard to do. There's so many opportunities in New York, but it's also the most intimidating city to like try new things, because there's so many people doing everything all the time. Did you have any inhibitions even going into it?
I think it's like the phrase ignorance is bliss. So like right when I moved here, I didn't really know that this was the biggest comedy scene in the country.
I love this entire
thing.
I mean, the Comedy Cellar's here, and there's a lot of comedy clubs, but I was like, whatever, like I'll just take a class. It'll be fun. And then I think it was just the ignorance is bliss phenomenon of I didn't know I was going to get into the most intimidating scene, but it's also the scene where you like grow the fastest, because you're pushed very quickly to be better if you want more opportunities. So that's been something positive out of it. But yeah, I just had no idea what I was getting into.
That's great. Yeah. That's like amazing.
Yeah.
Did you find that the people that were taking this course with you, did you find that a lot of them had different comedy styles than you, or like were they all the same age? How was the demographic?
The variety, yeah. The class definitely draws people who aren't, like, I got really committed to it, but a lot of them have not been on the same level of commitment. Like, to them, it was just something they were trying briefly.
Okay.
But age-wise, definitely, like, 20s to early to mid-30s. No one, like, too old. Everyone who had other careers as well. And styles did vary. Like, you could definitely see someone's personality in the way they delivered. I feel like me and this other girl around my age had very similar styles in terms of like joke structure and delivery, but there was one girl who did way more acting out, another who was an actual actress who was able to like put more emotion into her delivery. People had their own style. They just like brought themselves to it. So definitely a variety of like how people presented themselves.
Oh my God. And something that always intrigues me is that everyone kind of goes down similar topics. Like, did some people have like completely different areas where they inserted comedy in, or like darker comedy versus like lighter comedy? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Even like the shows you go to at big comedy clubs, people are always cycling through the same topics, like dating or parents or like jobs or just navigating normal life. I think there was one standout person in my class who did a really good job of almost taking a sketch idea but turning it into a stand-up joke. Like, I remember his one joke that he did of pretending that the human evolution was done in like Apple release format of like when Apple drops a bunch of products.
That's so funny.
And he just like did it so well, and it would probably make for like a really good sketch too, but he turned it into a joke really well, and like did similar things with concepts that weren't more traditional stand-up. So I would say, because it was definitely a beginner class, a lot of people stuck to like the safer topics or the easier ones to write about, not necessarily safer. But he definitely had a talent for like being a little bit more creative with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
How was the instruction of the course? Like, what was the format? And like you said, each person brings their own like different life experience. And I think comedy is finding what your strengths are and capitalizing on that and like telling your own story. But it's also so personal. So how does like the teacher play into it?
Yeah, so our teacher was like someone who was passed at the Comedy Cellar. His name is Rick Crom, and he like does shows there sometimes, and was also an actor. But basically the class was, before even the first session, he had recorded his intro lecture, and he had us watch that beforehand. On the first day he like went over it a little bit, but after that you build up over these 6 weeks for your 5-minute set, which is like a standard length of when you're first starting out. Anywhere you get a spot, you'll probably get 5 minutes. So each session you brought a minute of new material in, and each person would go up one by one and go through it, and he would like hack away at it word by word to say like, this word should be this, or this should be taken out, or you could add this in, and basically like helping us punch our jokes up, because a lot of comedy, like anyone can be funny, but writing comedy is just another writing skill. So he was helping us develop that writing skill. So he would spend like 10, 15 to 20 minutes on each person, like going over their like 2 jokes that they wrote, and just helping us make it better, and helping us with the delivery and like the enunciation or the intonation, and how to like, I guess, get more emotion out of your audience, because a lot of comedy is just getting people to feel something so that you release like whatever tension you build up into laughter. So he was teaching us how to do that with our writing.
I feel like there's so many creative elements that go into comedy that people don't even clock. Like, they just think people are coming up there and like
they're
making jokes.
Yeah, they think
funny.
they're just riffing, but it's not. A good comic makes it seem like they're just hanging out with you.
Yeah.
But all of it is like pre-calculated.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's like a lot of sensory overload going on in your brain. It's a lot of calculations happening at once. I like see that meme where it's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
The woman with the math function.
Literally. You have to think, that's what makes me so excited by comedy and like comedians is like they're constantly thinking 10 steps ahead. And they they have this whole like story woven together, especially like as the sets get longer. A punchline in the beginning is going to weave into the end of your
classic
set.
Callback, you know?
And I'm like, wow, how did you orchestrate
even like
all
when
that?
Comedians interact with the crowd, like you think it's spontaneous, and sometimes some of them it is spontaneous and they're coming up with their responses on the spot, but sometimes comedians will have things like already in the bucket of what they will say depending on what the person says, so that it's like they've built their like pick your own journey in their head, and depending on how the crowd interacts they'll like pull whatever they had preset out, but to you it'll feel like, oh, they're coming up with this on the spot, you know.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, this is like a whole dance. Actually,
it's
a
performance. It's like literally a performance.
Yeah.
Well, what was the turning point after the class where you were like, oh, I want to keep doing this? Because like you said, a lot of people just come in because it's on their bucket list or like a hobby.
Right. Well, actually, after I did the class, I didn't do anything with it for a while, like probably a month or two, just because I partially didn't know like how to get into it. There's like Facebook groups you can join to find out where open mics are. There's like different Instagram accounts you can follow to keep up with like shows around the city or mics around the city. And I joined a few things, but I was like, oh, this is a lot that I don't know. I'm just not gonna, it just was a fun thing to do. I'll move on with my life. And funny enough, I distinctly remember the first couple of mics I did. One mic was like a bad time because mics can be very hit or miss, because there's all these people coming in just trying to practice their stuff. And I remember I went to one, and it depends on the mic, but they pull names out of a hat, and I got picked last for like a 10 p.m. mic. And I was like, this is miserable. I'm never going to do this again. So I like didn't go to another mic for months. And then I remember this one summer evening when I went on a first date. It like didn't go well, and I was walking home and I saw like an outdoor open mic happening. So I was like, oh, like I have this 5-minute set I've built. I can go do that. So I went and like signed up and did it.
Like the same night.
Yeah, like after my first date.
That is iconic. So bold. That is legendary.
Redeem your night.
Right. I was like, I'm not going to end this here, you know.
Yeah.
I'm already dressed. Like, I'm on my way home. This is right here.
You need to use a good outfit.
Right. Not that I have ever dressed up for a mic after that, but I went and I did it, and I think the encouragement I got from that of like all these comedians who didn't know who I was, because this was like one of my first mics, being like, hey, like you're really good. We haven't seen you around. Like, what's your name? What do you do? Like, you should come out to this more. And that kind of gave me the boost I needed to be like, oh, what I wrote is actually good. Like, I should pick this up and add to it and like do more. And that kind of took it off of, then I started going to more mics and like sending out my tapes to show producers to see if I could get on shows. And my first actual show was exactly a year ago, actually, almost like the week of, I did the now called Laughing Lussie show at Broadway Comedy Club for the first time. And that was like my first booked show as a lineup comedian, and it was a lot of fun, and that I think is what really propelled me to do it more and more.
Damn, that is a crazy story.
That's
that
like
is so
the
fire.
most fun story of you just being like, oh my god, who does spontaneous shit anymore?
Yeah.
I feel like I never hear
it's
that.
It's also like a more nerve-wracking spontaneous thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you didn't do it for a while.
Yeah, that first mic, that like the one post the first date was, well, I was kind of nervous because like I don't know what I'm doing here. I've never done this before. My name was also like towards the end. I was like, I could just leave and go home. And I almost did leave. And the dude running it was like, no, stay. You're like in 2 people left and you'll go up. And I was like, okay, fine. And yeah, it was strange, like the first time standing up there, especially because it's usually all dudes, and I was like, I'm a girl's girl. Like, I don't know how to talk to men, so this is weird, but it was fun.
Beyond same. Never related to anything more.
Right?
And so once you decided to start like building up that 5 minutes that you had, what's the process like?
Yeah, so after that point, I knew that I needed to start writing more material, or else I would have to keep using the same jokes. So everyone has a different process. I feel like mostly it's just whatever pops into your brain that you think you can turn into a joke or you find funny. I just have this like note on my phone that I can show you, but it just has joke ideas, and I just write things down.
Oh my gosh,
And right now I'm at 145 items. Like, not all of these are good.
So there was a lot of scrolling involved for those listening.
That's the visual.
And I just, whenever I think of anything, I just write it down there. And then what I do later is I will sign up for open mics. I'll go back and look at that list and see what I can like turn into a full joke. I'll write that out, and each open mic you get 5 minutes. So I'll like compile 5 minutes of newer stuff I want to try. And I'll go try it out at mics. I'll probably try a joke out at like at least 2 to 3 mics before I use it in a show. But from there, you've tried new jokes, you know the ones that work, you know the ones that don't. And in a show set, I will like sandwich the new stuff between old stuff that I know is good, because that's just the technique of start your audience high, of like get them on your side and get them to laugh early, and then you can add in your new stuff, see how that goes, and end strong so that they're still left like thinking you're funny. Even if the stuff in the middle is new and like you bomb that, you're still ending on something strong.
Oh,
that's a fire strategy.
That's like the same strategy I have with the playlist. Like start with the hits, put in my favorites in the middle, and then end with the hits.
Yeah,
it's a tried and true. Pleaser. Tried and true.
Yeah.
So, what are your favorite topics, and like what areas do you pull from?
I feel like so far I've stuck to safer topics of family and growing up brown and like Virginia and all of that. Like a lot of stuff about my relationship with my mom, because we're super close. So there's so much to pull from there. And also like a little bit of like work, because working in tech, there's always things you can pull from there.
Always.
Tons of characters. And then dating was a big one that I like started out with. And I think dating would always be half, if not more than half of my sets. But I think as I evolve and grow, I want to transition to more like observational jokes of things I just see or hear or observe and find funny, or how I can turn that into something funny. And also just storytelling, because
I was gonna say experiences are probably a big one too, just random weird things that happen on a day-to-day.
And the great comedians are all like great storytellers. They can take something that's happened to them or someone else and turn it into like a 15-minute bit, you know? So I want to build up to that and be able to like draw my jokes out more and get more out of them than just like maybe a minute of material. Like really build upon things and try to like not just stick to the safe topics, you know, like expand what I'm talking about more.
Have you ever like blanked during a set, and like how do you like come back? You know what I mean?
Whoa, it's giving like elementary school like poem recitation where I was like, I forgot what Maya Angelou said in like the middle
line, but I'm gonna just.
That's fair. I mean, you both have done competitive dance, so you know how much muscle memory plays into it, and the brain muscle memory is also just as strong. Of now, I've said these jokes so many times that if I do blank, even if I forget what I wanted to say, there's enough like stored up there that I can just start like autopilot blurting out the next one and move on. But there have been moments where I'm like, shit, like I really forgot what I wanted to say. And there are times where I like pull out my phone and try to play it off and be like, just trying to pull up the next funny for you guys. I lost some marbles this morning. Like, don't mind me. So just like be playful with it. It happens. It's okay. And I think a valuable thing is that the pause in your brain will feel like it's going on forever of like you not speaking, but I'll go back and watch the video or listen to the recording and it was like not even that long. Like your brain draws it out more. And that's something I learned actually when I was like a waitress in college. Of at a restaurant, I feel like as the service person, if you leave your table for like they ask for hot sauce and you don't get it to them right away, you think you've made them wait 20 minutes, but in reality it was like 5. So in your head it feels a lot longer, but to them they're just like, oh, it came on time, like it's fine. So I think that plays into like so many aspects of life when you're like performing or doing something for someone else. You put so much pressure on yourself, so these little minute things are drawn out so much more.
How exactly do you get into different shows, and how do you kind of narrow down the list of shows you want to do? Do you just like look up the location, the venue itself, and then kind of figure out where you can fit in. Also, how often do they bring on new comedians? Like, do they have a set lineup and then you have to kind of insert yourself? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's important to, like, understand that there's two different kinds of shows. There's, like, club-produced shows and comic-produced shows. When you're first starting out, you tend to do more of the comic-produced shows. So this will just be other comedians wanting to put on a show and produce it themselves and set the lineup. And they'll either be able to have it at a comedy club, or they'll pick, like, another random venue, like it'll be a bar or a restaurant or some other sort of establishment. Like, I produced a show and it was at a fancy furniture store, like, just cool. Really anything under the sun. So first it was a lot of, like, I had to put myself out there and reach out to people. A lot of times you, like, send your 5-minute set link to people who produce shows, and you're like, hey, I know you produced the show, I would love to be on sometime, here's a tape for you to check out my stuff, let me know if you have a spot on your lineup for me. And in the beginning, it was like, people don't respond to you, they don't even look at the message, and sometimes they'll respond, or they'll say, like, they're booked up for the next couple months and they'll reach out again later. I'm so thankful for the people who took me on in those early shows, that because all I had was my tape from the class, and I look back, I'm like, yeah, my, like, material was funny enough, but obviously my delivery was nowhere near what a comic's delivery should be. So for them to have watched that and still been like, I'll give this girl a chance, I appreciate that now. So I remember after I did my first few shows, I like to, like, goal set for the next year, and I remember I wrote down my 2022 goal was to do at least one show a quarter, if you can believe that or not, and that really blew up.
Yes.
Yeah. What you can do is, like, put yourself out there in that way, and you'll get picked up by those who are kind enough to pick you up. So I got booked that way a couple times, and then people started getting to know who I was, so, like, more comic show producers were reaching out, being like, hey, do our show, and that was, like, a great way to get more into it, and that's been, like, how I've gotten a lot of my spots lately. I'll still occasionally, like, reach out to people and be like, hey, this is a tape, like, if you're able to have me on. So I still do that, but now I'm lucky enough for people to, like, know me in the scene a little bit more and think of me when they're setting a lineup. As far as comedy club shows go, that's the more larger beast of the scene. You have to be a good, strong comedian to begin with, and then it's more of, like, knowing the right people and knowing them at the right time when they're needing to fill maybe spots at the club, and just being around and being seen and being likable and just, like, someone that people want to be around. And that's kind of how you get picked up by comedy clubs. Like, the audition processes at these clubs vary. They're not the same between them. Sometimes it's, like, having to do those bringer shows and then getting to do an audition. Sometimes it's really just meeting, like, the club owner or booker or producer and them liking your stuff and them giving you a shot, snowballing into that. So that is the beast that I want to tackle next, of, like, figuring out how to break into comedy clubs. But so far the spots I've gotten have been majority, like, comic produced shows.
Awesome.
One thing you mentioned was you were one of the only girls at your that post-date open mic you went to. And classic, you know, in anything in life, where you're usually one of the few girls in the room. But I feel like comedy, especially with, like, people are drinking, like, it's like the environment is either great or it could be hostile, and that's just a place that women always have to keep an extra set of guards up. Has that ever played into what goes on in your mind before a comedy show, or do you have to, like, have some backup things stored in case, like, men are being men in the audience?
Yeah, I mean, professional comedians have been notorious for exacerbating those issues, as, like, the Me Too movement brought out. But I personally, in the scenes that I've been in the rooms I've been in, I've never felt uncomfortable by anyone. I think there's always at least, like, one or two women around, and if not, the men there I've befriended now to feel comfortable with, and I trust them. Oftentimes I'm not drinking. I don't choose to drink when I do shows, just because if I did that I would be drinking, like, every night, and I don't need that kind of consumption in my life. So I think I have been lucky enough to always feel comfortable and safe, but even if I didn't, there's always an exit door, you know, I can always leave. So I know that I have that autonomy to just take myself out of a situation. But Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, and fingers crossed it, like, won't. But again, the entertainment industry is notorious for these things, so I'm sure, like, as you climb the ranks and as you get deeper into it, it might get more complicated, but so far, no issues for me.
I mean, I'm hoping it stays that way.
Yeah.
And it's, like, good to hear that at least the comedy scenes that you're a part of, there are a lot of people who are, like, good people that you can trust and befriend. What has the, like, ratios been like with friends that you've made doing comedy? Like, are you able to find a sisterhood in, like, as a girl's girl? That's something I always think about. I'm like, I don't want to insert myself in a space with only men.
Yeah, no, I always gravitate towards women. So like, the first few comic friends I made were all women, because I would find them in a room and be like, hey, you look friendlier than these guys do. Let's talk. So I've definitely built a community of women I'm friends with. There's also a bunch of great female comedian organizations, too. Like, I did a whole program through this nonprofit called Women Stand-Up, and they put on shows, like, around the city, too, of just, like, female lineups. So that was a cool experience to just be able to, like, bond and connect with a bunch of other female comics. And, yeah, just, like, through the scenes I've been in, the shows, the mics, like, I've made a handful of female friends that are some of my closer friends now, and it's been great to find that. And I think also I've been pushed out of my comfort zone to, like, talk to men and, like, make male friends, you know?
Yeah, which honestly... Facts. Maybe I need to put myself in situations that force me to do that.
I have had larger friend groups with guys in it, but have never, like, sought out male friendships myself. And this was the first time that I had to, like, actually do it and get comfortable with it.
So, speaking of friends and family, was wondering, how have your peers, your parents reacted to you picking up this hobby? And have they been to many shows? What's their reaction to the jokes, especially when they're part of them? So curious.
Yeah. My parents have been very supportive of me doing it. They've always been pretty open-minded, but they have not been to a show, mostly because of my instruction.
Classic. That's like us telling our parents, you can't listen to our podcast.
Literally, like, don't even block it. Like, I'm like, you can't listen.
Which, I mean, it's on the internet, so props to you guys for your bravery, because they can just look it up.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. Trust. That's trust. No, even the, like, clips I post on Instagram, I make them as family-friendly as possible, because I know they could somehow find it if they wanted to. But they're super supportive of it. Mostly because I haven't quit my day job yet. You know, I still have a job. So to them, it's still like, oh, Lakshmi has this hobby, you know?
Yeah.
But they haven't seen a show yet. They won't for a while. I mean, maybe they can watch it if I get a streaming special or something. But until that day, that won't be happening. But I've had, like, a cousin come to a show who's around our age. So that was fun. And it was nice to include a family member in it.
Yeah.
My friends have been super supportive. I think at first it was definitely like, whoa, like, Lakshmi's doing this different thing and it's, like, taking up a lot of her time. But I think after they started coming to the first few shows, they were like, oh, this is, like, pretty fun and she's not bad. Like, this is cool for her, you know?
No, in fact, she's great.
She's amazing.
Can attest.
Yeah, and the, like, friend tribe I have in New York have been amazing. Like, when you're first starting out in comedy, you sometimes do shows where you have to bring in a minimum number of guests, and they've always, yeah. If you're like newer comedian trying to make it, the shows are literally called bringer shows, because you have to bring a certain number of people. Because at the end of the day, a comedy club is like a business. They're trying to make money. So if you're someone new trying to get stage time, they're like, okay, well, you bring an audience and we'll let you perform. So for stuff like that, my friends have been so supportive and have always been there when I've needed them. And that's very integral, because that's the only way you'll get more opportunities to get better. So I can't thank them enough for the support they've given me, just because, like, I don't make a ton of new material all the time, so these poor people have listened to the same jokes over and over and been such troopers about it, you know?
Oh, that's so sweet.
Some real ones, yeah.
Real ones.
Also, I know personally, I find it so exhilarating when someone does a hobby. Or, like, an adult is doing a hobby, because it's hard. That's literally my next question for you, is, like, when you're in the 9-to-5 grind, doing anything else takes, like, so much willpower.
Yeah.
How do you, one, just balance both of these things and to just keep yourself motivated?
That's a good question. I feel like it's that like pie chart of sleep versus social life versus work, and you can only pick two, right? There are things that I don't do because I spend my time doing this. Like, I personally don't cook a lot. Like, I get prepackaged salad kits from Trader Joe's, and that's what I eat most of the time. It
counts.
Yeah, it counts.
That's healthy.
I'm mixing it together.
Yeah.
So I think there's certain things I've had to give up to make time for this. But in the evenings, I don't have a ton of time where I just like sit around. I'm like finish work and I'm off going to something, like either a show or an open mic. So it's just like being really efficient with my time. And I definitely like don't get the most sleep in the world, but I feel like I still get enough to be a functioning human. But I think it's also just like cutting down on other commitments to make time for this. I will say, like, over the last few months, as I've gotten more into this, it's been way less frequent occasions of me like catching up with friends and getting dinner or grabbing drinks. Like, I was doing that so much before this became such a big part of my life. There's been less of that, but I think it's gotten to the point where it's filtered my social circle down to like my closer friends, and that's been nice because I think my whole life, like being an only child, I've put pressure on myself to maintain a flourishing social circle and like always be trying to see people and maintain relationships. And now I feel like I'm doing something for me, and the people who are there, and they understand that I can't hang out all the time, but everyone's busy with their own lives. So like the time we make together is still fun, and we still make time. And it's been nice to just kind of dwindle it down to prioritize like closer circle too.
I'm obsessed with that. Oh my god.
I know.
I could
that
cry.
Hits. Honestly, I think there's this point in your 20s that most people hit where they're like, wait, it really is quality, not quantity. And when I get to just have a few friends that I'm able to just be my complete self with, that's so much more fulfilling than trying to like maintain all these things just to have like heads in your life, which you know is exhausting.
Moving somewhere like New York is hard too, because there's this pressure to make friends and always be doing something and just put yourself out there. And I think I put that pressure on myself when I first moved here, of reaching out to people I hadn't talked to in years and being like, hey, I live here now, like let's hang out. And some of them have like stuck around as friends, and some of them were just people I saw a few times and don't really talk to as much anymore. But I've been so blessed with like a close circle of friends here now that I met here literally through like a social group I joined, and now they're some of my closest friends. And I just feel so lucky to have that, because I know so many people like struggle to make those friendships when they move to a new city.
It's extremely challenging. I remember I had such a hard time when I moved to Ohio, because I went from loving like my college life, like have all my besties literally next door or like in my apartment. I never have to think about it. And I think as you grow older, you just have so many things you want to do, and at a certain point, like you almost kind of have to slim it down if you want time for yourself. Wow, like to think about you going to comedy shows like every day of the week, I cannot fathom that.
That's when you know it's like a passion, right?
Yes.
Like if after I close my laptop after a long work day, I'm still willing to like trek somewhere else in the city to go do a mic or show, that's how I know I actually really like this. And it could be something more. I don't know what yet, but it's definitely more than a hobby right now, but less than a profession, because God knows this barely pays for like an Uber to Brooklyn if I were to take one. But yeah, it definitely is the passion that fuels the energy that goes behind like having to put myself out there so much.
That's so exciting to hear, because I think we lose our passions along the way, or we deprioritize them to like survive, literally just to like make money and
I feel like
have
it's the
life.
first thing that goes when life gets really busy. It's like whatever you do for fun for yourself is always like sayonara. And then you're like, maybe I'll see you later, maybe not.
Right. You forget that you can even make time for it. You're like, no, like the responsibilities of life are so heavy, I don't have time to have fun.
And this is the most fun hobby, because you're literally bringing joy to other people as well, which is amazing.
So speaking of kind of where you want to take comedy in the future, let's say a hobby, or like do you think it's something that you want to make a full-time profession?
Yeah, no, I think that's something I'm still figuring out. I think working like a high-paying tech job, it's hard to ever imagine letting go of that financial security. Being a first-generation immigrant, your parents drill in money security before anything else. What are passions? I don't know. Like, I need money to pay the bills. And I think a part of that will still exist for a while in me, of I don't want to give up this job to pursue something so uncertain. If I really want it, that will require a level of bravery I haven't built up yet. And for now, I think I will keep it at the level it's at, and if it grows naturally into something bigger, then I'll think about like, well, hey, is this at a point where like I should let go of this day job to do this more? But I'm not going to do that until I see like promising prospects coming out of it. So for now, I just want to keep growing in it. I want to perform at comedy clubs more, because so far, like this first year of building was just performing at other comic produced shows and more like one-off shows, and it would be amazing to just be like a past comedian at a comedy club and get to do like their house shows on like a Friday or Saturday night, the prime time. And if I got to that point, I would still be able to keep my day job and still do that. So that's like the next step I'm looking towards right now. Beyond that, I haven't thought about it. I mean, I guess like growing up, I never thought I could have a creative job. That wasn't even something that crossed my mind. So to think that people are getting paid to write jokes, like that still blows my mind. I still don't believe it. And I am around like fellow comedians who are at my level. They don't have like a 9-to-5 corporate job. They just have other jobs, and comedy is like what they're grinding towards. And that's still something I can't wrap my head around. But if I ever got to the point where I felt like doing that will propel me to like an even greater comedian, I would consider it. But for now, just a hobby. We'll keep growing with it, but I'm keeping my day job.
Yeah. Which we love. I think that that's like more than good. Like I feel like sometimes you see these end states of something like incredible and you're like, yeah, I would love to like do XYZ like big stadium show. But there's a beauty in getting to do both and having the comfort of your life that you're used to, and like still putting in the time and investment to your passion. And I feel like that natural growth will happen. It pays to just stay in the present and like enjoy this for what it is. And I feel like that's exactly what you're doing.
Nowadays, there's a lot of pressure almost to like make your passions a full-time thing.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't have to be like that. If you're happy with where it is, you don't need to make it more than that. And like a lot of people do say, like once your passion becomes your job, then it's like the vibe is different.
Right.
Yeah.
So if like it's feeding you the right way right now, then that's all that's important.
I think I read or listened somewhere about how we shouldn't view like our job to be our passion. It should serve more of our purpose. And if you feel like you're being purposeful, then that should be what you get out of it. Like chasing something passionate out of something that's supposed to provide income is just not going to be feasible in this capitalistic world. So if you want financial security but also don't want to hate your life, then pick a job where you feel purposeful, like you feel satisfied from the work you're doing. You might not love every aspect of it, but if you get something done and you feel good about it, then like that's achieving something still.
I love that.
Agree.
Yeah. I think that like fully encapsulates what all of us in this day and age are trying to do. And there's no guilt about not having a career that you are passionate about, or not being like, I don't know, not everyone's going to be like a savant at something and like know from age 5 that they're supposed to be.
That's their calling.
That's literally not real life.
Not
to wrap it up, this is the most efficient show we've ever had.
I know.
I feel like we've talked through it all. But anything else that you wanted to talk about at all?
I feel like I've always been in the mindset of if I want to do something, I'll just go do it. So I guess I didn't realize that like sometimes people overthink things a lot and like don't let themselves start. But I guess my one thing would be like, if you've been thinking about doing something, just go do it, you know? Worst case, if it goes poorly, you never have to revisit it again. But if it goes well, like you might discover something incredible that you get to just continue and take on as much as you want, you know? So chase those little thoughts of like, hey, maybe I should take a pottery class or try to write a book, or like to whatever extent that it may be. Make time for it and go do it, you know? Could change your life.
I'm obsessed with your free-flowing attitude towards doing things. Like, it's just that I feel like people feel so much pressure that they have to, like, be the most amazing dancer to take a dance class, be the funniest person in the room to, like, even consider, like, going to a stand-up
class.
like,
whatever.
or, like, an open mic or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that serious. And I think even, like, with this podcast, like, it took us years of talking about it to even just, like, do it. But some of the best things can come if you just give yourself a shot. And I feel like more than other people giving you a shot, it's you that doesn't give yourself the shot.
For sure.
Yeah, nothing's ever going to come out on, like, a platter to be like, here, pursue this. This is the perfect opportunity. Like,
and you're not going to hit a home run on your first try for everything. So even if you don't let that discourage you from never trying something again.
Yeah.
That's so inspiring.
Stop. Great. So then we can just end it on a fun little comedy themed favorite.
Okay,
so the comedy themed favorite is so boring. But what is your favorite comedy club in the city? And you can give us more than one if you have multiple favorites.
Okay. I feel like you can't beat the Comedy Cellar if you're trying to go see a show. Like, it's just the best of the best. You have to meet an incredibly high bar to be able to perform there, you know? So I feel like you're always going to get a great show, no matter when you go, what night, what time. But I think there's definitely a bunch of other comedy clubs that are A, cheaper, and B, you still get to see really funny comedians. Like, the ones performing at the Cellar are probably going to go do a spot there too afterwards or before, so you're getting a better deal. But I think some that people may overlook or not think about, like, definitely Uptown, there's a bunch there. If you live uptown, you don't have to come downtown to watch. There's Stand Up New York on the Upper West Side and West Side Comedy Club, which are both great venues. There's the Comic Strip Live on the Upper East Side, so that's, like, the uptown scene. And even downtown, there's, like, so many smaller ones that I think people don't think to, like, bring out-of-town guests to, that you could, there's still high-quality shows. Like, New York Comedy Club has 2 locations throughout the city. And there's just so many others that are escaping my brain right now. But, like, you guys have been to Gotham. You mentioned, like, that was still a packed, hot show. So I think there's so many. I think my personal favorite, I think just having done the Comedy Mob Festival, like, Stand Up New York was a lot of fun. And it was nice because through the festival, again, if you brought, like, a certain number of guests, they let you come back to do, like, a normal house show spot. So I got to go back on a Saturday night, I think, and do, like, the 10:30 show. Ooh. And that was a lot of fun. It was, like, it wasn't even a big crowd, but, like, it's so satisfying to do a show where people are there to watch comedy, because I've done so many, like, bar shows now, or, like, random shows in random locations where there's people just trying to have a normal day, and you set up a mic and a speaker in there, and they're like,
hey, everybody,
we're gonna do comedy now. Someone walks in hoping to take their first date there or something, and there's a blaring comedy show. Like, no one wants it, you know? So you don't always have an audience that's there to watch comedy. So any, like, club show is just so nice because the people there are there to watch you. They're there to laugh. So I think that's what's nice about it. But yeah, personal favorite, Stand Up New York, but really can't go wrong. Explore. There's, each one curates a different type of lineup, so I like them all for their different things they offer.
So I've only been to a few.
I was now, like, while you were talking about them, I'm like, right, so this is a bad question for us.
We don't know the most. We don't have the most educated answers.
Well,
with
where
lots
have you
of experience.
had the most fun? Like, what was your favorite show?
Yeah, I thought, okay, honestly, my favorite was the Comedy Mob. I just have fun on smaller scale shows. I don't need, like, the biggest comedians to, like, come and make me laugh. Like, I don't want to see, like, huge big names all the time. It's kind of nice to just see people doing their passion. So I would say I love Comedy Mob. Comedy Cellar was amazing. Gotham was probably my least favorite, and I still had a good time. But, you know,
if you want, like, the Comedy Mob vibe, if you're willing to trek out to Bushwick, the Tiny Cupboard there, the tickets are like $5. It's more of, like, those up and coming comedians. But sometimes you get bigger names in there too, and you get to see them for $5. So, like, who doesn't like that? And it's right off the J. Like, sure, it's out in Bushwick, but it's right off the J, so it's not too hard to get to. That one was one I didn't mention. But I would, again, if you want that more intimate vibe, not the flashy, like, you don't need something super curated. Like, I mean, not that they still curate good lineups. So I would recommend, like, if you ever have time to take a 30-minute subway ride.
Yeah, we do.
We have the time.
Yeah.
We actually went to one show in Bushwick.
Oh, yeah.
We saw Naomi at Paragon.
That was phenomenal.
But it was like it wasn't like a comedy club.
Yeah.
It was like
I can't remember the
normal venue.
Yeah, it was like her recording her Netflix special. So it was like a way more like curated thing, and it was mainly just her. But there are a lot of venues in Brooklyn I want to explore, but have not yet. I think my favorite's just Comedy Cellar, because I got to see like Nimish Patel there. Like, I like the like bamboozling of like you're just going and then you're like, oh my god, like Aziz came the last time I was there.
You know
and
what's crazy? I've been to like maybe 4 or 5 shows there, and I've yet to see like a huge name pop in. Yeah,
I don't know. I got lucky the 2 times I went. I was like, wow, I don't know that many comedians, but like the ones I know are here. But I do want to do a lot more exploring, and I think it's such a fun activity to like do actually, and it's way less of a, I don't know, like you just vibe and hear someone make you laugh.
It's so fun.
Amazing.
And you can be silent for once. It's like a conversation that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I like just going out, especially when you're with your close friends, you know everything about them, like what else are you talking about? I love just going to a comedy show. It's like going to a movie, but way more interactive.
Yeah.
I hate going to movies for the record.
I love to.
I love to have the Regal Unlimited Crown Club pass.
Do? Let's go.
I go like once a week.
Considering, I was like, maybe when I come back in January, I'll get a
movie
card.
she needs a friend for that.
I'll do that with you. So. Yeah, because I'm like, those winter months are so barren.
They are.
And like
even
literally
in the summer, they got that AC pumping. Just go like cool down there, you know?
The beauty of New York is you can be miserable in every season.
Yeah, so. It's lovely, really.
Always a time to go to a movie theater.
Yeah.
And now you have to plug yourself.
Yeah.
And tell us your upcoming shows.
That's true. Okay. Plug is follow me on Instagram. It's my handle is just my whole name. It's Lakshmi Kopparam. It'll be spelled out on the podcast description. So go find it there. Share my reels if you find them funny. Send them, like them, heart them. You know, package them up for Christmas, put it under the tree. And upcoming shows, I actually have to check my calendar. But
she's booked and busy.
The opposite. It's a dry month, so there's not as much.
Or like
happening.
New Year's shows, whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, like definitely recommend going to a Lakshmi Kopparam show, because we've been to one and we need to keep going.
It's a banger.
They're certified
highest praise. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yay.
It's been a time and a half.
We'll do a check-in after year 2 of comedy.
Yeah,
and see you
we'd love
crush
to have
those
you
shows,
back.
The comedy club shows.
Yeah,
and it'll be
fingers
amazing.
crossed. I have good updates for you guys.
Yes,
you definitely will.
Okay,
Yay.
well, amazing.
Yay! Thanks everyone.
Thank
See you guys next week.